Today, we're zeroing in, really getting into the weeds on one specific, really electrifying moment from the world of wrestling.
Yeah, we're talking about that intense women's Intercontinental Championship match. Becky Lynch versus Lyra Valkyria at Money in the Bank 2025.
Exactly. So setting the stage a bit more, this match wasn't just tucked away somewhere on the card. It was the second Intercontinental title match of the night.
Right, big spot.
And it went down in Los Angeles at the Intuit Dome. Packed house, too. The sources made a point of saying 17,374 fans were there. Sold out.
And, that kind of crowd just amps up the pressure, especially for a match that already had so much personal baggage attached.
Okay, let's get into that baggage, that history. Because the source material is crystal clear. There is some serious bad blood here, even though, apparently, they weren't always enemies.
Oh, absolutely. The material paints this really complex picture. One source had a great line for it, said they were good friends, better enemies.
Wow, yeah, that kind of says it all, doesn't it? Captures that whole dynamic shift.
It really does. And the sources trace this back quite a way. Their paths first crossed in a big way back in NXT.
Right. Lyra actually beat Becky Lynch for the NXT Women's title. That was Halloween Havoc 2023.
A huge moment for Lyra. Beating the man like that really put her on the map.
For sure. But the more recent stuff, the stuff that really led to this match, that started pretty recently, didn't it?
It did. The sources tell us, despite that NXT history, they actually teamed up. And they won big, the women's tag team titles at WrestleMania 41.
Which honestly makes what the sources say happened next even more shocking. It was the absolute turning point.
What was that?
They lost the titles the very next night on Raw to Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez.
Okay.
And immediately, like right after the loss, the material is blunt. Becky Lynch turned her back on Lyra. And one source pretty graphically says she beat the hell out of her.
Oof. So that's the betrayal. That's the spark that lit this fire again, but way hotter this time.
Totally. And it led directly to them facing off at Backlash just last month for Lyra's Women's Intercontinental Championship.
And Lyra kept the title at Backlash, right? The sources mentioned that.
Yeah, she retained. But interestingly, it was described as a very quick pin out of nowhere, a roll-up, specifically after what was apparently a tough matchup till then. Not exactly dominant.
Clever. Opportunistic, maybe. But the aggression didn't stop there, according to the sources.
No, it didn't. Just like after the tag title loss, Becky attacked Lyra after the Backlash match ended, too.
So it's a pattern. Losing, then attacking after the bell. That adds a whole other layer of disrespect.
Definitely fueled the fire. And it got worse leading up to Money in the Bank. Sources say Lyra interfered in one of Becky's qualifying matches for the Money in the Bank ladder match.
Payback. Costing her a shot at the briefcase.
Exactly. Prevented Becky from getting in. And that really brought things to a head, leading straight into this championship match with all its history.
So with all that backstory, the stakes for this Money in the Bank match, man, they were sky high. And it wasn't just about the belt.
Not at all. Lyra, according to the sources, made it clear this was personal now because of that post-match attack at Backlash.
Right. But Becky came back with a challenge that had some really specific, really intense terms. The sources laid these out pretty clearly.
Yeah, the stipulation for Becky was huge. If Lyra won this match, Becky could never challenge her for the women's IC title again, as long as Lyra held it.
That's massive for someone like Becky Lynch. Basically saying, this is my last shot at you for this title.
But the flip side, the stipulation for Lyra if she lost, that was about pride.
What was it again?
She'd have to look Becky in the eyes and raise Becky's hand. Acknowledge her as the better woman, publicly.
Ouch. That's not just losing the title. That's a forced public concession. Humiliating.
And Lyra, the sources say, was full of confidence. She accepted, said she'd beaten Becky twice already.
Even got a little cocky, didn't she? Something about doing with her eyes closed last time.
Yeah, exactly. Said it was no problem to face Becky again under these terms. Really set the tone for her mindset going in.
Okay, so let's jump in. The source kind of throws us right in, doesn't it? Mentions entrances starting, and the first one it highlights is Becky Lynch.
Right, and then immediately there's this really striking visual detail. She's described as wearing a red fur coat.
Yeah, just pause on that image for a second. That's not just an outfit.
No, it's definitely making a statement.
And Michael Cole makes a joke that Becky doesn't realize it's 100 degrees in here.
Okay. Wow, yeah.
And the commentary team, they did a great job setting this stage too.
How so?
Well, they hammered home the no love loss angle. One's sisters now turned bitter enemies, that kind of thing.
Yeah, building the drama.
They asked if lightning would strike twice, could Lyra beat Becky a third time? And they framed it as Becky's quest for the gold she'd never won, the IC title. An outlier on her resume.
Good point. And they also gave context on Lyra's reign, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Pointed out she was the first ever women's IC champ, held it for 140 days at that point, and this was her 6th title defense. That's a solid run.
Yeah, especially for someone relatively new to the main roster title scene.
And one source really highlighted this stat the commentators brought up. Becky was 0-5 in her last 5 title matches overall.
Ouch. That's not a great stat heading into a big match.
Right. And it led some commentators to basically predict the outcome based on that alone.
It's funny how stats like that can shape the narrative, even with all the personal drama involved.
Definitely adds another layer of pressure on Becky.
Okay, so let's dive into the match itself, because this is where it gets really interesting. The sources all agree. It started incredibly aggressively, like 0 to 60 instantly.
Yeah, you could feel that animosity right away, no feeling out process. The fight actually started before the bell.
Becky takes a swipe first, so maybe it was mutual aggression, like they just couldn't wait.
Could be. Either way, instant chaos. And Lyra definitely got the early advantage, sending Becky crashing outside.
And it was right then, early on, outside the ring, that the sources mentioned this potential wardrobe issue for Lyra.
Oh yeah, the near wardrobe malfunction. One source said the ref even had to help her for a second.
And they compared it to something similar happening at the Rumble, didn't they? With Liv Morgan helping her then.
Exactly. And the commentators, naturally, had a bit of fun with it, joking she might need a zip tie or a new outfit. A weird little moment in the middle of the chaos.
But Becky, ever the veteran, used that outside environment pretty quickly. Blocked a rope dive drop kick from Lyra,
Right.
and then just slammed her hard onto the floor.
And that slam, it had immediate consequences. Becky's got sharp eyes. The sources say Lyra started clutching her left elbow right after that landing.
Oh, landed awkwardly.
Yep. And Becky immediately saw it and started targeting that elbow. Classic smart wrestling. Exploit the weakness.
So Becky rolls her back in, presses the advantage, hits a flying forearm, then the exploder suplex, but only gets a 2 count.
And the commentary team, watching this, they picked up on Becky's strategy right away. Called it her game plan, attack early, establish control, punish that arm.
One commentator even called it a Hall of Famers level game plan. High praise.
Definitely. And Becky wasn't just hitting moves. Sources say she was talking smack, slapping Lyra, punching her back, knee on the neck, couple of uppercuts, trying to get in her head too.
Physically and mentally breaking her down.
Yeah. But there was this interesting debate on commentary, captured in the sources, about why Becky was so intense.
What were the takes?
Some felt it smells of desperation, called her a bit desperate. Maybe because of that 0-5 title match stat we mentioned.
Okay, like she felt the pressure.
Yeah, or maybe that Lyra's confidence was getting to her, taking her out of her game, forcing her to be overly aggressive.
But there was another view.
Right. Others saw it as just game day Becky Lynch, making a statement. Acknowledging that Lyra had grown so much, Becky needed that intensity to beat this different Lyra Valkyria.
So desperation or determination. Depends on who you ask, I guess.
Pretty much. But either way, the sources agree. After Lyra's initial burst outside that early part of the match, Becky Lynch was dominating thus far. She was in control.
Okay, so the match moves on. And the reports, the notes, they describe this real back-and-forth battle. Lots of specific moves, counters, exchanges. It sounds like it kept the crowd hooked.
Oh, absolutely. This is where you see the technical skill, the athleticism shine through. Both of them dug deep. Multiple sources made a point of highlighting that.
And right away, even after that initial flurry, they were countering each other's big moves. Shows how well they knew each other.
Yeah, Becky went for the manhandle slam early, but Lyra saw it coming, rolled through for a 2 count. Quick escape.
And then Lyra immediately tried for her finish, the Nightwing. But Becky was ready, countered that into the slop drop for her own 2 count.
Commentary pointed that out, didn't they? Both trying for the home run early, but both blocking it. High stakes, high awareness.
After that exchange, Becky seemed to get back in control for a bit, wore Lyra down more.
What did she do?
2 running leg drops, got a 2 count, hit some really loud knife edge chops, and then just slammed Lyra's head on the turnbuckle pad over and over. Really focused attack.
But Lyra's tough. She fired back. Sources describe her comeback starting with forearm shivers. Becky tried to counter an Irish whip, kicked her gut, but Lyra blocked a butterfly suplex attempt.
And then Lyra unleashed her own sequence. Big momentum shift.
What was in that sequence?
The swinging neck breaker, 2 clotheslines, her signature combo offense, then a step up in Zugiri.
Nice.
And capped it off with the Dr. Bomb, that big sit-out power bomb. Oh. Got a 2 count, and the sources say Lyra was really firing up here, finding her groove.
We also saw some quick technical stuff mid-match, right? Not just power moves.
Yeah, a fast roll-up exchange, and Becky hit a clever tip-up maneuver. Showed they could battle on the mat with transitions and pins, too.
Now, there was one move that really stood out in the reports and commentary. Becky's DDT.
Oh, yeah, that one got a lot of attention. She hit it clean for a 2 count, but the way commentary described it.
Vicious. They said Becky spikes her with it. One source had commentary saying it felt like every disc in the neck just got compressed. Described the impact right on the top of the cranium, said Lyra looked like a mess.
But then, contrastingly, another commentator apparently praised the execution, calling it unmatched finesse from Becky Lynch. So brutal but skillful.
It sounds like it. Clearly a move that made an impression. Then Lyra drags Becky to the corner, goes for the moonsault.
But Becky moves. Veteran move.
But Lyra landed on her feet, right?
Yeah.
And hit that quick head kick or spinning heel kick. Turned Becky inside out, as one source put it. Incredible agility from Lyra.
Then we got into some submission battles. Lyra went for the Nightwing again.
Becky counters into a butterfly suplex.
And one source specifically linked that suplex to Becky setting up an armbar.
Right, the cross arm breaker. Targeting that arm that was hurt earlier. Smart callback.
But Lyra countered the submission, rolled Becky into a pin. Multiple sources highlighted that pinning counter as a key part of Lyra's game.
Very intelligent wrestling. And then Lyra applied her own submissions.
Yeah, first a single leg crab, then transitioned into a modified ankle lock.
And the description of that was pretty unique, wasn't it? A modified half Boston crab with her foot on Becky's neck.
Exactly. Commentators loved it, called it unconventional, innovative, a technical masterclass. Becky had to scramble to the ropes to break that one.
Just relentless pressure from both.
The fight spilled outside again after that, didn't it?
Yep.
Lyra hit a wrecking ball drop kick.
Sources mentioned a dive, yeah.
Yeah.
Becky fired back with an elbow to the gut, but Lyra kicked her repeatedly in the chest. Then she draped Becky over the barricade.
Setting up that huge spot, the peripeteer.
Right, described as a diving leg drop or guillotine leg drop. Lyra came off the announce table or the timekeeper's barricade.
Right onto the back of Becky's neck while she was stretched over the barricade. So dangerous.
And one source added that detail about Lyra landing hard on her own tailbone during it, but just shrugging it off. Incredible focus.
Back inside, another major sequence. Becky avoided a dive from Lyra.
Catches her midair.
And hits a powerbomb. Huge near fall there, a 2 count. Commentators apparently thought that might be it, saying Becky caught her, stacked her up.
Doesn't have gotten a huge reaction. Man, this match wasn't just move after move. It built drama. Those near falls sounded incredible, had everyone guessing.
Absolutely. The sources really emphasize how well-timed and crafted those moments were. They pulled you in, created genuine doubt about who was going to win. Every pin felt like the pin.
Like that powerbomb counter we mentioned earlier. Lyra dives, Becky catches her midair, boom, powerbomb, 2 count. Commentators freaking out, that's a huge near fall.
Definitely. And then the big one, the avalanche manhandle slam sequence.
Right. Becky goes up top, Lyra cuts her off, gets Becky on her shoulders. Looks like maybe an avalanche Samoan drop attempt.
But Becky fights out, hits elbows, and then delivers the avalanche manhandle slam.
Though the sources clarified it wasn't from the very top rope, right? More like the middle rope.
Yeah, middle rope or off the middle turnbuckle. But still, commentary called it Becky's ultimate nuclear weapon, a Superman handle slam.
And Lyra kicked out.
Lyra kicked out. Becky's reaction, according to the sources, was just pure disbelief. Becky can't believe it.
Commentators were stunned too. Said Lyra was more than equal to it. Showed incredible toughness. Multiple sources flagged that as a big near fall. Huge moment.
Everyone held their breath on that pin attempt.
And it wasn't just those specific spots. The sources generally said the match was full of close calls. Lyra kicking out at 2.5, Becky barely kicking out herself at times. The consensus was clear. The near falls were expertly crafted. Kept you on the edge of your seat.
Okay, so speaking of edge of your seat drama, there was that moment, highlighted across multiple sources, where the match spilled outside again, leading to that really tense double countout sequence.
Oh, yeah. That sequence really showed how intense things were, how far they'd push it, even risking a non-finish, which nobody wanted.
This was right after the avalanche manhandle slam near fall, right?
Yeah.
They just spilled outside immediately.
Yep. And Becky, maybe frustrated Lyra kicked out, just drives her back first into the steel ring post. Brutal.
And then adds insult to injury, hits another manhandle slam, but this time on the concrete floor.
Devastating. especially after everything they had already been through.
Then Becky does something smart, the veteran move commentators noted. Rolls back into the ring herself.
Resets the rest count, buys herself a second. Wise move.
But it backfired. Because when she rolled back out to get Lyra,
Wham! Lyra hits her finisher, the Nightwing, right there on the floor.
so now both women are down outside having hit finishers on each other on the unforgiving floor.
And the ref, Jessica Cart, starts the 10 count. Both are just out. Sources describe them as being in comas, basically.
Until the count got really high, 9, maybe even 9.5.
Right at the last second. Both suddenly came alive. And the sources say they sprinted back into the ring simultaneously, just barely beat the count. Incredible resilience.
And the commentary during this, apparently it was pure chaos and relief.
Yeah, first panic about a double count out. Maybe a double count out here. Double count out means Lyra keeps the championship.
Then relief when they made it. Thank God. A double count out would have solved absolutely nothing. Thankfully, this match lives on.
And they immediately talked about the stipulations, right? How a double count out would negate everything. Becky's hand not raised, her never challenge again clause.
Exactly. They stressed the need for a conclusion tonight. Everyone was invested, especially with those personal stakes.
That whole sequence sounds like a masterclass in building tension. Show their limits, but also their absolute refusal to quit. They had to finish it in the ring.
So they survived the count out, they survived the near falls. How did this incredibly hard-fought battle finally end?
Okay, this is where the controversy, which was a huge point in all the sources, really comes in. The finish gave us a winner, but let's just say the tactics were questionable.
How did it go down? They get back in the ring after beating the count.
And fueled by pure adrenaline, they just start trading strikes immediately. Forearms, palm strikes, just slugging it out. No quit in either of them. Becky managed to stop Lyra going for the Nightwing during this.
Then a series of quick roll-ups, trying for that sudden finish.
Exactly. Standard late match stuff when you're exhausted.
Becky sends Lyra face first into the middle rope, sets something up maybe.
Looked like she was going for one last manhandle slam, the decisive one.
But Lyra countered it, rolled Becky over for a 2 count. Even exhausted, she knew how to counter Becky's finish. Amazing.
And then, the moment. Right after that counter, Becky rolls Lyra over.
With a handful of tights.
Yep, or grabbing the tights or a hand on the tights. All the sources were consistent on that specific detail. Becky used the tights for leverage to get the pin.
And that was it. 3 count.
3 count. Becky Lynch wins. The match time, according to 2 sources, was 15 minutes and 20 seconds.
A solid length for that kind of intensity, but the real story was the finish itself and how commentary reacted.
Oh, instantly. Multiple commentators saw it and called it out immediately. Announcer immediately called this one out. Becky Lynch clearly had pulled the tights. Becky's got the tights. Hand on the tights, for sure.
But not everyone saw it or admitted to seeing it.
Right, there was that little debate. Michael saw it clearly. Wade played dumb. I don't know what you're talking about.
Huh, classic.
And one source even had commentary comparing it to another controversial finish, the Mercedes Athena finish, saying maybe the first angle looked like just leverage near the backside, but other angles confirmed it was the tights.
So some saw it clearly, called it out, but the ref didn't catch it. The win stands. Becky Lynch is the new Women's Intercontinental Champion via controversial means.
Yep. End of the match. But not the end of the interaction.
Right, because of those stipulations they agreed on beforehand. Becky wins, but Lyra had obligations.
And this post-match stuff, detailed really well in the sources, just adds another layer, a really uncomfortable layer, arguably.
So first stipulation, Lyra loses. She has to raise Becky's hand, acknowledge her as better. Did she do it?
She did. The sources say she did it begrudgingly or reluctantly, but she upheld her end. Commentators called it true sport, even though she clearly hated it.
Okay, so far so good. Stipulation met.
But Becky wasn't done. Having won with the tights grab, she apparently wasn't satisfied with just the one reluctant hand raise.
What did she do?
Sources say Becky told Lyra she must do it for all 4 sides of the ring. Demanded she repeat the acknowledgement in every corner. Seriously.
Yeah.
For winning like that, that seems excessive.
Commentary thought so too, mostly. Reaction was negative. Come on, why do this? Called it a public display of humiliation. Said Becky was making Lyra know her place.
Did they think that was part of the deal? Going to all 4 sides?
One commentator questioned it, but another insisted it was always in the details, pushing Lyra to do it with gusto, do it like you mean it, just really rubbing it in. Lyra, stuck, begrudgingly obliges.
Man, that's rough to watch, probably. So Lyra goes around the ring, tries to leave.
Tries to leave, but Becky stops her again, according to one source, and adds another demand.
What now?
Becky demands Lyra strap the title around her waist.
Okay, was that part of the deal?
Commentators didn't seem to think so. I don't know if they talked about that. Sounded like Becky just adding humiliation on top of humiliation.
One commentator summed it up pretty harshly, right?
Yeah. She cheats to win. Then she's got to put on this public display of humiliation. Pretty damning take on Becky's actions.
So Lyra puts the belt on Becky.
Straps it around her waist. Fulfills that final, maybe unagreed upon, demand. But the second she does... Payback time. Lyra immediately hits a German suplex. Just snaps.
Wow, didn't see that coming after all the compliance.
Followed it right up with the Nightwing. Laid Becky out. Then, according to the sources, she stormed off or then left. Got her payback.
How did commentary react to that, Lyra finally fighting back?
It was mixed. One felt Becky deserved that, arguing Lyra lived up to her part of the bargain and then some, so the attack was justified. Okay, I can see that.
But another called Lyra a sore loser. And one had a really interesting take. They thought the attack looked ridiculous because Lyra went along with all the humiliating demands first. Felt it undercut the impact.
Huh. That's a different perspective. So a really complex, debated ending to the whole segment leaves you wondering about the message.
Definitely. Lots of layers there.
Okay, so moving beyond just the sequence of events, the source material we have is rich with commentary and analysis. Gives us insights into how the match was perceived, the performances, and where things might go next. And first off, the overall match quality. Sounds like it got rave reviews.
Universally positive, yeah. Hell of a match, excellent match, incredible match tonight. Phrases like that pop up repeatedly.
One commentator apparently said it was miles above the main event on the show. That's a pretty bold statement.
It is. It shows how highly they rated this specific contest. Another thought it was clearly better than their Backlash match, and one of the best of the whole night, right up there with the men's Money in the Bank match.
Though they did add a little qualifier, didn't they? Something about another match.
Right. That specific comparison saying neither this nor the men's MITB was better than Gable versus Vikingo from Worlds Collide. Adds a bit of personal taste context. But another source just flat out said they had their most enjoyment watching this match on the show. High praise for entertainment value.
And a big reason for that quality, according to the sources, was the chemistry between Becky and Lyra.
Definitely. Commentators kept saying they work great together, have great chemistry, excellent chemistry. That connection clearly allowed them to have such a dynamic match.
They also talked a lot about performance and growth, especially Lyra's.
Yeah, tons of praise for her, how much she's grown, her confidence now, how she handles the spotlight, just flat out getting better.
They mentioned her being everywhere in the media, too, like interviews and stuff.
Right, it mentioned Metro UK, Muscle and Fitness, suggesting her profile was really rising.
Yeah.
Called her an outstanding in-ring technician, too.
And there was that specific point about Backlash.
Yeah, the idea that Becky maybe took Lyra too lightly back then. Didn't realize how much Valkyria has grown and developed over the past 6 months.
So this match showed a different Lyra Valkyria, more dangerous, more ready.
That was the commentary consensus, yeah. She really stepped up.
What about Becky's side? Her performance and status?
Acknowledge her legacy, of course. Trailblazer, 7-time world champion. Someone always aiming to get back there again, meaning the very top.
And this IC title was framed as a big deal for her.
Yeah, a big opportunity tonight to add that missing piece to her collection. They discussed her desperation, sure, but also her ability to adapt her game plan from Backlash. Showed her level, her elite thinking.
And that controversial finish, the tights grab. Commentary was definitely divided, or at least debated it openly.
Oh, yeah. The sources made it clear. Some saw it plain as day, called it out. One commentator tried to deny it. Really reflected the controversial nature of how Becky won.
Let's see what Dave Meltzer's analysis of this match was.
Okay, so let's get into it. First thing in the notes, the rating. 3.5 stars. Now, for this reviewer, 3.5 is, well, it's pretty good, isn't it? Generally seen as very good.
That's right, yeah. Solidly good. Well-worked, enjoyable match, but maybe, not quite reaching that top tier.
Okay, and what's interesting, the first actual note mentioned, even before things really kick off, dueling chants.
Yeah.
Right at the start.
Tells you something about the crowd immediately. Oh, definitely. Shows they were invested, right from the jump. Both wrestlers had loud support. That's always good for the atmosphere. Sets a nice stage.
Okay, but then The notes get critical. There's this specific moment highlighted.
Right.
During a double countout spot, it says Becky Lynch was like, slow getting back in the ring.
And the note says the consequence was the referee had to kind of visibly hold up the count.
Yeah.
And it specifically says this looked bad.
Okay, let's pause on that. Looked bad. Why does a ref holding up a count? Why does that technically look bad in wrestling terms?
Well, I mean, wrestling works best when it feels, kind of real within its own rules, flows well. A count out is supposed to have this rhythm, right? 1, 2, 3, up to 10. If someone isn't where they need to be to break that count naturally, and the ref has to obviously, hesitate or slow down, it just breaks the illusion. It kind of shines a light on the choreography and makes it feel maybe a bit clunky or, like a mistake.
Right. It pulls you out of it because you see the mechanics, the seams are showing a bit, a timing issue wasn't hidden.
Exactly. And for someone reviewing based on execution, pacing, a moment like that, it just stands out. It's a flaw, disrupts the match's rhythm.
Gotcha. But even with that specific criticism, the overall vibe from the notes is still very good match.
Yep, that's the overall assessment.
And this seems key. The notes make a point of saying it was not at the same level as their Backlash match. That one was called something special.
Yeah, and that comparison is really important, isn't it? It tells us, okay, this Money in the Bank match, high quality, enjoyable, got the 3.5 stars.
Right.
But it just lacked whatever that extra spark was, the thing that made the Backlash one feel special to the reviewer.
So maybe that one moment, the ref holding the count, or perhaps other little execution things like it, that's the kind of detail that stops a very good match becoming something special.
Could be. Yeah, potentially. So looking ahead, the sources got into some speculation, didn't they? Based on the match and especially that post-match attack.
They did. Particularly about Lyra's future. One commentator felt that post-match German suplex in Nightwing, that felt like a blow-off, like Lyra getting her revenge, and maybe closing that chapter for now.
So maybe the feud is over.
That commentator seemed to think so, or at least hope so in a way. They questioned the point of an immediate rematch if Lyra wasn't going to win the belt back right away. Didn't want to see her lose to Becky again so soon. Suggested maybe Lyra should feud with someone else next.
Interesting. But others speculated about Becky's reign.
Yeah, one prediction was that Becky would carry the belt all the way to SummerSlam and beyond, hinting at a potentially long and significant reign for her with the IC title.
And then there was that really detailed alternative booking idea from one source.
Oh, right. Had two main ideas. First, maybe Becky defends against a returning Bayley at the Evolution PLE next month.
Okay, that's big. What was the second idea?
Hold off on Bayley's return. Instead, have Becky versus Lyra III, but make it a last woman standing match at Evolution. A definitive blow-off, like Becky-Charlotte at the first Evolution.
And in that scenario, Lyra wins the title back.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe even with an assist from Bayley, setting up Becky versus Bayley for SummerSlam after the Lyra feud is truly settled.
Which option did that commentator prefer?
The second one. Felt it was cleaner storytelling wrap up Becky-Lyra properly before moving to Becky-Bayley. Acknowledged it meant Bayley fans wait, but liked the one-on-one focus over jumping straight to a triple threat, even though Triple H apparently loves those.
Fascinating to hear those potential paths being discussed right after the match, based purely on the sources.
It really is. Shows how one result can spin off so many possibilities.
And there were some other kind of random but interesting details captured in the sources too, right? Like that crowd chant.
Oh yeah, the "We Want Truth" chant during a quiet moment. It's exactly. Just a little slice of live TV reality making its way into the record.
The sources also gave us some broader context, stuff about the broadcast itself, the LA atmosphere, beyond just this one match.
Yeah, paints a bigger picture. They even threw in LA's wrestling history, 17 PLEs, 4 WrestleManias, 2, 7, 21, 39 specifically mentioned.
Plus, this was only the second WWE event ever at the Intuit Dome. First was Raw on Netflix debut in January, so still a new spot for them.
And LA means celebrities. Sources definitely noted Kourtney Kardashian and Travis Barker with their baby. "Holy hell, the stars are out," was the quote.
But they also mentioned Daniel Fishel, Topanga, and Jensen Karp being there but not getting camera time. Led to that commentary debate about fame levels compared to the Kardashians or Macaulay Culkin.
Little inside baseball stuff.
Okay.
And ads, of course. The sources detailed those too.
Like the Serums Escapes spike drinks, Ultimate Refreshment, Rumble Punch, Slamming Blueberry, 10% ABV, they noted.
Yep. And the WWE 2K25 add 30% off deal Jacob Fatu in the Bloodline Showcase mode narrated by Heyman.
Plus the ad for Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia on June 28th, hyping John Cena's return. Last great champion, one final time. Big build for that.
And that funny moment with the Mattel Money in the Bank ring toy.
Oh, yeah. Pat McAfee playing with it, trying to simulate LA Knight cashing in and breaking it, trying to get the briefcase off.
Adds a bit of unexpected color to the broadcast description.